Sean from Middle Grounded. This is probably a couple dozen times I've tried to make this video. I'm so tired. It's been a hellacious week. I got a new position dropped on me while I was training for another position. It's higher profile, but there's a lot more pressure. And I was attached to somebody's hip for 40 hours this week, and I just want to go to sleep. But talking about Mr. Penis, especially in a negative way, always makes me feel better. I was in Cornwall three-way stream last night. It was a great stream. It's a good place to hang out. There are not a lot of psychos in there, and you rarely see message deleted or banning going on. Lorneography community is awesome. I had a good time. I was going to make a video after it was over, but I added Cornville on Skype, and then I fell asleep. So yeah, my week has been pretty crap. But we're going to talk about what it must have been like and what it's probably like to live in Cornville, Maine, in terms of male-female relationships. I think in the Armstrong household, all women are expected to be submissive to any male family member and everything. Forget about equity. You want to be a part of a decision? Shut your mouth, Mama Gwen, and sit down. Lorne pretends, mother dear, that he loves her and he respects her, but we know he doesn't. He uses her, probably verbally abuses her when no one is looking or listening. You heard the way he gets upset when he talks about his siblings. This is Lorne we're talking about, so whatever you see in public, turn it up to 10 when nobody's watching. I don't think women are allowed to even act on their own wishes and desires. As I said, forget about decision making. Hang up on him, Casey. Winnie, call so-and-so. Put him on three-way. I'll be on mute. No, call him right now. Call Emma. No, call Emma. You're going to call Emma right now. Casey, you're getting an abortion. I don't care if you don't want me to talk about your childhood trauma. Casey, talk about your childhood trauma, and this is what you're going to do about it. They are nothing more than sex holes for Lorne that he will never be able to use because he's a virgin. And if you think the fact that this man said, I haven't had sex since I got out of prison, doesn't identify him as a virgin, you're insane. He hasn't had sex since he got out of prison. And I have an entirely different video that has bits and pieces of that in there. Think about what he said. Keep your dream that he's not a virgin in check, because he is. In Cornville, violence is acceptable, at least in his world. Look at his relationship with Roy, talking about pushing a disabled Tony down. The way he throws things, screams and yells. He said he spanked his dogs. I'm pretty sure he meant beat. I think violence is a daily occurrence with Lorne. Punching holes in things, throwing things, threatening to beat people up. I just think it's a way of life for him. I also think, if you remember me discussing what it would be like to be married to Mr. Penis, Lorne would probably be stupid enough. Say he got Winnie up there. Say Winnie was a coke addict, as she was on the phone, through the phone. She was doing all these crazy things. She got a job. Now Winnie's going to be the life of the party at the job. Men are going to want to be with her because apparently she's really white and skinny. I don't know what she's supposed to look like, but what I am saying is, if she was halfway attractive and she was this wild and crazy girl, older men would dream about being with her. Young men would want to go out and party with her. Lorne would go crazy. He'd buy a smartphone that he's not supposed to have, much like Rabbi David K did, and I will make a video on him. Rabbi David K, and I'll tell you because this is pretty freaking funny. He went out and bought a smartphone he wasn't supposed to have, goes to a state-mandated psychotherapy session. His phone rings in his pocket. It is also discovered that he had been viewing pornography, which he is not allowed to do, going on the internet without prior approval on that phone because he thinks he's bulletproof. He went back to prison for it. I think he's in prison right now. But what I'm saying is, Lorne would get that smartphone and he'd start monitoring where she went. He'd start calling her over and over again. He might want to FaceTime her wherever she goes, so he could see where she was, what she was doing, who she was talking to, how she was talking to them. Because in his world, he should have total control over the masturbatory sleeve that has a heartbeat known as a woman. I don't think a woman would have any choice over her body. He wanted Casey to have an abortion. He told a 13-year-old girl who hadn't had the chance to experiment hardly at all with her hair that she wasn't allowed to cut it. Maybe she put it in ponytails or a pigtails. Maybe she put color in it. But that was probably it. But we've got Mr. Penis over here at 37 or however old he was, told her she's never allowed to cut her hair. That pretty much screams fucking Xavier. It screams that this asshole wants complete control over a woman's body, and she should look how he wants, wear the makeup he wants, wear the dresses and clothes he wants. If he wants her to look dressed like an old lady, like he told Ramona, you try to make him do that. He might throw away all of her nice clothes and leave her with nothing but frumpy, holy clothes. And I don't mean church. Because he's crazy, and he believes that all men should dominate women. He's also the kind of guy that believes that violence against women would be the woman's fault. Every bit of behavior he's ever exhibited, every behavior he's ever shown, he's blamed on someone else for making him do it or pushing him to do it. And let's keep it real. Lorne's never going to accept responsibility for anything. If he's violent with a woman, it was to protect her. You were going to hurt yourself, Winnie. Or it would be profuse apologies, and then it would happen again. Because again, to Lorne, women should be submissive, and they don't have a right to do anything without his permission. What scares me about that is Lorne probably thinks sex is a mandate for marriage. If he wanted to have sex, he would just, quote, take, unquote, his wife. He would just, whenever he wanted to, should be expected. Here's 20 seconds of grunting and I'm done. Oh, you didn't want it? Of course you wanted it. You're my wife. It's sick, it's disgusting, but I feel like that's the way he believes women should be. You know, she wouldn't get the best of health care. Winnie wouldn't have been able to go back to school like she wanted. She would have never turned her life around. Her on cocaine would be a dream for him because that's a completely different type of prison. That's something she did to herself that he could exploit and use. Sex addiction for Casey, he could exploit and use. He would hold it over her head. He wouldn't want them to get better. He would want them to regress to the worst and least desirable state that any man could ever experience. Except for him. He'd want them to be perfect with him because he's an asshole. Lorne would thrive overseas. I think total there's been like 300 million girls married, forced to marry before they were 18. Think about that. I think 15 million a year or something like that. Lorne wanted to marry his precious little princess at the age of 13. If Rhoda was 16, he'd have wanted to marry her too. He found a Barbie doll in Walmart one time and probably called Barbie Marie Armstrong. That is the way he thinks of women. That violence is okay. Their bodies are his. They shouldn't have access to anything except for him. And I think his family might be the same way. I don't know. I've never seen Roy around women. I don't know how Tony and Wendy really are. I know they aren't his family, but he claims they're his friends. I don't know if Wendy really is the dominant one or Tony tells her to stop your stupid bullshit and that's why Lorne likes Tony. I don't know. Maybe they all think like that. Maybe they don't. Maybe Mama Gwen's husband that shut out Lorne. Maybe he thought that way. To a guy like Lorne, sexual harassment is normal. Remember when he got fired? Oh, wait, he quit. He told Kayla he quit because they didn't want him going around and talking to people. To Lorne, sexual harassment is normal, and women should just expect it. Because of the whole men are the dominant species. Women are nothing but a subspecies. They should just take whatever we do. If I want to say this to you, you should accept it and say, thank you, sir, may I have another? I believe he thinks sexual harassment would be normal. And I think many women would say that the biggest problem when it comes to relationships, and those abusive relationships, is from the fact that men see them only as sexual objects and as things that can satisfy their sexual needs, aka a masturbatory sleeve with a heartbeat. For some reason, Lorne, who's not a protector or provider, believes that's a man's role. And when you take on that, I'm the provider, I'm the protector, that dominance that he feels, that he portrays, that is a powerful tool for him to manipulate. It's a powerful tool to control. It's something like a monster like him should never be allowed to have, because we know what he'll do with it. Once he got married, his wife's only role would be to shoot out kids. Period. I assure you, if you go to some of these third world countries, you will hear things like all women should become mothers and all women are mothers, even if they don't have kids. Some kind of mentality like that, because in a lot of those Central America, Latin America countries, that's how it is. Mr. Penis would be right at home over there. I read a quote from a woman that was Nigerian, and she said, "You are worth more as a wife than as a daughter." Think about being told that you're worth more as a wife than as a daughter. I couldn't imagine that, saying that to my daughter. I couldn't imagine being in that mindset where I think men are so much better, or I think I'm a dominant, or I don't think you have value unless you're a sex hole. Saying that to your daughter? Fuck you. Lorne is a homophobe, so he says. But I would imagine he's the guy who thinks that lesbians or sex workers or divorced women / widows, they all have their rightful place and they shouldn't inconvenience him, and his eyesight should never be tainted. Well, you know what? Lorne would probably like two women kissing. I don't know. But we know how he feels about two men kissing. Can you imagine Lorne walking up on a woman who can, or a man dressed as a woman, or a man who considers himself trans? Can you imagine his reaction? Lorne would take it personally and believe that it was his right to say something and be a complete douchebag. Lorne would never let a woman have any financial autonomy. None. At least I don't think so. I think Lorne would make sure the money was controlled so that they could never do anything. They couldn't leave if they want to. Remember what I told you in the what it would be like to be married to him, with no bank accounts, no PIN numbers, no access to anything that would allow them to escape? We pretty much know that's how this guy would be. As I've said before, I think Lorne believes that violence towards women is the woman's fault. I think he will always believe that kind of shit. And for that, fuck you, Lorne Armstrong. The way you treat women, the way you see them, the way you have no respect for them, the things you say to them, all of it is unforgivable. And you deserve to be alone. You need help, but you're not going to get it, and you won't accept it. So from all of us in the Lornography community, from all women around the world, fuck you, Lorne Armstrong.